This is We All Be News and Radio.
Ron Hurd, get up out of bed. Let's go. Let's go. Ron Hurd. That's the word. Get out of bed. Give me a jingle. My number 051. Get out of bed. Let's go. Don't be afraid. This is Herb Smith calling you. Herb Smith. All right, I know you're famous and all that kind of stuff, but let's go. Get out of bed.
You have enough time to rock with us to the end of the show, if you don't mind, or you got to go?
Well, I got at least 30 minutes.
All right, cool. I want you on this show, man, because you're a basketball fan. And I want everybody to make sure you go to medicines.net. That's medicines.net. If you're in Memphis area, please come out to the event organized by the wonderful sister Nikki Gilmore, May the 3rd, 3 p.m. Central. Man, I know by that time, y'all, the Grizzlies would have won, and they're on their way to round 2. The Grizzlies will win tomorrow, okay, everybody? The Grizzlies will win Game 6 tomorrow. So y'all can go come out on Saturday, 3 p.m. Central, and we'll post all the information around the social media and through our networks. So we're going to bring in another brother, another distinguished scholar as well, an activist, Dr. G. Joyner, the one and only, truly beyond category. How you doing today?
What's going on, NBA?
Nothing much, man. It's good to have you on. It's about time I had you on, man. And I read your article on your website. Right. It's phenomenal. I'm going to post it in the chat room. But I just want to get your take. I know you've been listening to Dr. Whitaker have his take. He's a basketball fan and also a accomplished scholar as well. But what is your take on the whole thing right now?
You know what? I've had a lot of mixed emotions, even since the day I wrote the article, which came out on my blog, rainbowsandlilacs.blogspot.com. Came out like a day before, I guess, day before yesterday. I published it the day before yesterday. I'm to the point now where, this is not shocking, of course. I think what we really need to be aiming at, the phone call, like I mentioned in the article, is not the issue with me. It's the issues with the housing discrimination out in L.A. between Latinos and the blacks, the sexism in the front office, ageism, racism in the front office of the L.A. Clippers. But it's really with that behavior, because that's the application of being, racism is the application of bigotry or prejudice, okay? Like, I can't keep getting so tired of people saying, well, anyone can be racist. Well, no, if you don't have the power to hire, fire, or marginalize somebody socioeconomically, sociopolitically, financially in general, then you're not racist. You're not racist, okay? But I think what we need to be concerned about is, why was David Stern, he was in the position of commissioner, NBA commissioner for, I think a little over 30 years. And so why did they allow this person why was everybody so complicit, not only the commissioner, but the other owners? Why were they complicit for 3 decades with this guy? They know him. They've had drinks with him. They've golfed with him. They know each other, and they know the rumors about each other. Some of them probably could possibly even maintain the same sentiments towards the minority class of people in the United States, i.e. particularly and specifically people of African descent. So that's my problem with it. And now it's kind of like a Band-Aid, and everybody knows what it's about. I mentioned on Facebook the other day that Adam Silver didn't do an amazing thing yesterday. He did the right thing, and the only thing that he could do to protect the brand, because Donald Tuckowitz's behavior on the phone call, actually his activity, legal activities, being sued by the U.S. Department of Justice about that discrimination, racial discrimination with the housing. The fact that if they hadn't done anything, that would have been bad for the brand of the NBA as a whole, which in turn would have hurt those pockets of the other 29 owners. So it wasn't like a civil rights gesture that he did, or he just felt so much conviction that he needed to do this to show that, hey, we are accepting of anybody. No, you had to. The money, that's the bottom line. So that's really how I feel about, topically about the situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I co-sign everything you and Dr. Whitaker has said to this point. And also remind me of, is this a lot too late? Not too little too late, but a lot too late. It reminds me of when they go after these white people who have killed black folks, civil rights cold case murders that was actually solved 50 years ago.
And they're dead.
They're dead. But not only are they dead, But when they get them a lot of times, when they decide to turn them in, they're old, they're probably octogenarian, dying from cancer anyway, but they had a chance to live a full life, to enjoy themselves, to be with families, to be productive.
They got one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel.
Exactly. So how is that a punishment when you rewarded them for their bad behavior throughout their life? Allow them to live a full life. For example, we have the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summer coming up this summer. Everybody know about the Mississippi burning case with Michael Swerner, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman. What people don't understand is that their bodies were found on the property of Olin Burridge, who was a wealthy landowner and entrepreneur down in Mississippi, I guess in, Philadelphia, Mississippi. They found their bodies in his earthen dam. He died last year in March at the 80-something years old, never been sent to jail for the crimes. Although their bodies were found on his property, that same land was being subsidized by our government. When Cliven Bundy talks about Cliven Bundy out in Las Vegas, when he talk about black folks getting welfare and all this other stuff, people don't understand about corporate welfare, the subsidies that the white farmers get from the government, millions of dollars. So here's a man who had 3 civil rights workers buried on his property, never been prosecuted by the law, get a chance to make millions and millions of more dollars, die surrounded by loved ones at the age of 82. This is Olin Burridge, his obituary in the New York Times. So this is the system that we're dealing with.
Wow. Yeah, and another thing, and one thing I'm not a fan of, and of course, I've had discussions offline show, the Passing Professor, what have you. I try not to lump. I'm still kind of, sometimes I feel like I kind of use the turn the other cheek method. I try not to want everything to build upon the past, and growing up in a completely white suburb from 81 until I got 18 and went to college, you would hope, and now here being 36 years old, you'd hope that you would like some history to be watered down, not meaning, you can't forget the past, but you don't want those old ghosts haunting the subsequent generations, and you want to disconnect past activity. And I don't like to ever holistically lump everyone based on the aesthetics and their opinion and their appearance as far as, well, this must be your racial ideology when it pertains to people of color. But it's hard not to, man, because you still see those remnants, Like I said, if you see a guy like, what's scary is what Donald Sterling has friends, billionaire friends. Probably some of those NBA franchise owners or people, the members of the owners groups, they're friends of his. So if you're really against this and you're going to come out and vote, I know you're just protecting your financial investment, but if you're really against this behavior, why would you have been cordial, entertained this man, and had some type of camaraderie with him? I don't hang around murderers, blatant killers, because I don't approve of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm just wondering, what's really behind that closed curtain of professional sports, because it's hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars per year being generated. And you're wondering what's really behind that, because, the NBA, outside the players, which are the low-level personnel, when you really get it, let's not look at the money, how much they're being compensated. Let's look at the labor that they're doing. They're the low-labor blue collar. So what's going on behind, the NBA reflects us as far as the low-labor blue collar, but it doesn't reflect us in the front offices. We're more than 80% the players, but I wonder how many of those sports doctors who majored in sports medicine are African-American. I wonder how many of the executives are African-American. I wonder how many of the scouts are African-American. And I'm not talking about the former players that they hire for PR purposes. I'm wondering what's really going on behind that closed curtain. And I go with the NBA because it's majority. I believe everything should reflect your society. When you really look at it, it's not a shock that most workplaces, mixed, diverse workplaces, as they say, are only about 10 to 12% black. You know why? Because the nation is only 10 to 12% black. But here you have an arena with basketball, which is 80% African-American. I wonder what those business meetings look like. I'm just wondering. I'm not talking about secretaries. Hell, here in Memphis, I don't know anybody that works for the Grizzlies. I don't know anybody that knows someone that works for the Memphis Grizzlies. That's what I'm concerned about, and that's that de facto racism. Don't worry about that rant that his mistress basically is probably wanted to use for some type of extortion, and
right.
she pulled his card, and she pulled his card and went ahead and released it or leaked it. But what's really going on behind it? I think that's the bigger issue. And let's not just take a Band-Aid for this. And, of course, there's bigger things going on than that situation. But we have to look at the activities of this man, and this man has been a part of this. He's owned the franchise for 30 years, along his tenure right now, owner, and he's been up under the rubric of the NBA this long, and they're well aware of his sketchy history. You can be lied on once, twice, 3, 4 times, but when you have class action lawsuits, man, against you, when the U.S. Department of Justice feels like they have enough to convict you or at least to judge against you on that, come on now. Something's up.
But, you look at how he ran his organization. He is right now, I guess, the longest tenured NBA owner, 33 years of owning a team. He ran his team like he run his apartment complex. He ran it like a slumlord. Because, in 33 years, not one championship, man. I mean, they share the same building with the Lakers. Come on, Dr. Whitaker. Not one championship?
Oh, man. They ain't even got, back then, they couldn't even get in the playoffs. So,
period, yeah.
I tell you, they were the serious joke of L.A. and the rest of the league. It was like I was gonna go sign up one day and see if I could get on the team.
Yeah.
Wow. But I say the Washington Generals got a better win-loss record. The Washington Generals got a better win-loss record probably than the Clippers. But
he used to have used to get certain players to come here, and then he wouldn't keep them because he wouldn't pay them.
Wouldn't pay them like Danny Manning at 8-8.
Oh yeah.
The dude. How he did Danny Manning with the pay, how he did Elgin Baylor. At one point when he was GM, he was only Elgin was GM for almost 22 years. And,
yes,
right. And he was only making $300-some grand a year versus the average GM was making between 1 and 1.5 at that time. Hell, he didn't even try to pay Mike Dunleavy Sr. Remember, Mike Dunleavy Sr. had to sue him, and he did a white man like this. He owed him $12 million, and they eventually set out of court for $6 million. So he's definitely cutthroat and manipulative. The prototypical American businessman, J.R. Ewing type. They're going to try to get a lot for nothing.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And Stern gave him Chris Paul. How do you veto a trade? So something.
Let's say about Dave Stern. I'm sorry.
Yeah, how in essence, yeah, the guy didn't have great business practices. If anything, it looked like I'm sure he was in the black simply because he wasn't paying anybody their rightful commensurate salary. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I was thinking about, I got to bring in the NACP in this. I'm sorry, I know I keep on. I'm not trying to shit on them on purpose. I'm not trying to dump on them, but I keep on thinking like people, they trying to backtrack this now with this thing that happened with Donald Sterling. So I remember not too long ago when the national NACP, they accept sponsorship from Wells Fargo. They have a high-quality production image award show on network television. And Wells Fargo was like one of the leading people evicting folks out of their homes for color black people.
Yep.
But then they took money from them, and they supposed to be representing black folks or color people, I guess. So, their values have not been right for a long time. From perception, if you look at what's going on.
But look, I'm going to say this. If they were taking this money, it needs to be an investigation to the L.A. chapter, period. Because I'm going to say this. Look, I'm all for you taking a racist money and taking his money and make it work in the black community. I'm cool with that. Do what you got to do. But with a guy who's worth $1.9 billion, for him to be about to get a second, first of all, how do you get 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards? I thought you only had 1 lifetime. But for him to be able to get a second one, he should have had donated enough money where you could have eradicated the Crips and the Bloods in L.A. You know understand what I'm saying? It should have been something like everybody in the hood, everybody in Watts should have been able to get a 4-year tuition paid on Donald Sterling. That's the way you're going to do it. But apparently we know, common sense would tell any of us that he was donating probably quite a bit, and somehow it was getting broken. That bread was being broken in between the president of the chapter, the VP of the chapter, some other little cronies, and that's about it. Something's up with that. That doesn't even make sense because why would a man like this be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award considering his past history? Now, I'm all for and believe, honestly, with all of my heart, that people do change. But what did he show you between 03 and 06, those two different separate discrimination lawsuits? What did he show that he was repenting for his ways and trying to get on, follow his moral compass and has a brand new moral compass? Did he show us anything? No. So what was the lifetime achievement for? Hell, Saul became Paul, Detroit Red became Malcolm. Everyone can change from their past ways. But what he done to change? He hadn't showed anything to us. So now they have egg on their face as usual. And my father and I were talking a couple of days ago. He was like, you know what? And my dad's 65 years old. Marched on Black Mondays here in Memphis when he got back from Vietnam. Mm-hmm. He was a part of the political landscape, at least trying to get qualified and also black politicians of integrity in the Democratic Party to be elected to positions. So he's been socially active his entire life. And he said that's why the NAACP is a dinosaur, because this just looks like they're just trying to get money and corporate sponsors to do what, really?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, tell me what they do, seriously, right now. What do they do?
Well,
can you tell me? I mean, I might be ignorant, but just tell me what they do.
Hey, I need at some point I didn't know they even existed.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
Well, money buys silence.
What do they do?
But money, when somebody give you money,
money buys silence. Huh?
Yeah, money buys silence, because whoever signs your checks control you. Like whoever grow your food controls you. Whoever signs your checks and pays you controls you. So he brought that silence. Mm-hmm. That's what he did, and that was smart because he's a master manipulator.
Do they draw salaries? Like,
yes.
The president of a chapter, is that his job?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's not service. It's occupation.
Okay,
Well,
I tell people this. Like, people gotta understand. I had a Jewish guy on my show from L.A. actually several years ago, and he told me about a website called Charity Navigator. You can look this up. You can Google Charity Navigator, because by law, nonprofit organizations must disclose their financial records to the public. And he was like, anytime I said, like, this Jewish guy is telling another Jewish guy, like he was talking about Morris Dees of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And this Jewish guy that I had on my show, he actually worked in the SCLC office with Dr. King back in the day, back in the 60s. And he said he was also a youth counselor when he was in L.A. for Tookie Williams. He said that he had Tookie Williams when he was 17, and he told his mom that Tookie was a natural, rest in peace, he was a natural leader, but he was in trouble. If he didn't get in the right track, he was going to be in trouble. But anyway, he told me this. He said it bothers him, because he lives in Alabama. He did at that point. It bothers him that people talk about the Southern Poverty Law Center, but what they don't understand is that they are far from broke. If you look at the Charity Navigator website, you will see that they got almost $300 million worth of assets with the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Oh.
And Morris Dees and his partner,
the ADL.
Yeah, but Morris Dees and his partner, they're making over $300,000 each. That's from the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'm not talking about speaking fees. I'm not talking about books and all. I'm talking about just as a salary, right?
Isn't that oxymoronic though?
Yeah, you an Englishman, you know, yeah.
Like really, like I wouldn't, even if I got employed, if I got a job by the Poverty Center, Southern Poverty Center, I would at least know what. I'm not going to make a whole lot of money, right? That doesn't match up.
Well, words create worlds, but, whoever controls the narrative controls the reality. And if we don't control that's why it's important to have shows like media outlets that talk about this stuff. Dr. G. Joyner is important to have the things that you are doing in social media, as well as influencing minds in the classroom. And Dr. Whitaker is important to have the platform that you're doing, because we're dealing in a system of white supremacy, racism. And Donald Sterling was the Frankenstein created by Dr. Frankenstein, which is Dr. Frankenstein being white supremacy. And the thing, what was the incentive for him to change? If I'm a multi-billionaire doing the stuff that he has been doing for most of his life, where is the damn incentive to change? There is no incentive to change. They are rewarding me for quote-unquote bad behavior, so why should I change? Why should I change?
He's not going to lose that team either. He's
not
going to lose that team
Okay.
either.
Why?
No. One thing I know, just from doing a little research on the man for my article, because all I ever knew, I'm going to be honest with you, like I was telling people, 03, 06, let's be honest, Facebook didn't have 1 billion users then, right? There was no Twitter at the time, right? There was no Instagram. But so if you weren't on the West Coast, or I was telling my wife, if you're not on the West Coast or you weren't a huge basketball fan, You didn't even really know. First of all, you never knew what he looked like. But the only thing you would have known about him was that he apparently was rich, and we assume that all these white guys that own these teams are billionaires, and at least their management group, their ownership group are billionaires or multi-hundred millionaires.
Right.
But all you knew about him was the situation with Elgin Baylor, which they kind of swept under the rug in sports real quick. And you know, Elgin Baylor's always been a stand-up guy, a man of integrity, even though I don't like the way he did Mahmoud Rauf when he backed away from him when they were going to sign him with the Clippers. I didn't like that, so that says a lot. But then again, you know, a lot of Negroes are scared to lose that paycheck, which is now is even more ironic that you didn't want to do. You did Mahmoud wrong, I think it was like 93 when he called him in for a meeting, and then after he'd heard the HBO interview, he told him when he gets to the arena, he doesn't even want to meet with him. And then here you are, you know, and which was discriminatory because you didn't like the man's religious beliefs and his social stance. But then you claim and take a lawsuit against your boss who was mistreating you all along, now that we know that. But with that said, he's not going to lose it because the man was a ambulance chaser, an injury lawyer, a divorce lawyer. He has $1.9 billion, and with money being deposited in his account as we speak. So he has enough money and time and connections where he can – this thing probably go to the Supreme Court because even though I disagree with him, not because of the rant, the telephone recording, but because of his behavior before. But because the NBA is a private organization, they can allow or disallow whoever they want, but it still has to go by their bylaws. But in the Constitution of the United States, and I hate to say this, you can't force a man to sell his business. You just can't. You can't do that. Now, you would think, I was telling a friend of mine, they were like, you can't hurt somebody with all that type of money. I said, no, people like them are hurt by their egos. And his whole thing was these guys don't own sports franchises because that's their way to make a living. You've never known someone to be worth $10 million buy a team, and that's how they get paid. No, they buy teams when they're worth $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 million, and might get up with some other people who have similar wealth, right? But they're not owning these teams to draw an income. They're owning these teams because it's the closest thing you can get to being a Southern planter in 2014. In modern, late 20th, 21st century, it's the closest thing you can get to literally owning. Think about it. They buy, sell, and trade players. Human beings, right? They put you out to pasture. They had injury reports on you, right? Just like at the slave auctions. Same thing. Same thing. And then people say, well, they're getting paid. But be honest. In the United States of America, I don't care if you're white, black, Latino, Asian. If you're an athlete and a top athlete in any sport, that is all you know. You've never heard of someone retire, very rare. You've never heard of someone retire from a professional sport and then start a whole career as, I don't know, a lawyer, a doctor, an Indian chief, a professor, a writer, and they don't write their books. They get them ghostwritten. But so, you dedicate your life to that, so that's all you have. So, of course, they should be compensated like that. And in the big scheme of things, you've got teams like the New York Yankees, right, or the New York Knicks, who hadn't won a championship since back in the day in the 70s, right? Okay, but yet look how much revenue that team brings in. So, would you really look at it, LeBron making $23 million a year or $17 million a year is not a whole lot of money compared to how much he's making not only the Miami Heat, not Coca-Cola, right, McDonald's, Nike, right? Look how much money he's generating for these billion-dollar corporations that are making billions of dollars a year. So you're really getting pennies. So they want to be able to own. So the fact that you can get him away, if somehow society at the Supreme Court can say, you know what, you've got to sell this, or we can confiscate the team, which they can't do that either. That would humiliate him because that was his goal. He was a Jew, a son of immigrant Jews that didn't have nothing, man. He didn't have no money. He bought some land in Los Angeles, California in the 50s when land was cheap on the West Coast. When nobody knew, when L.A., when it was cheap, you go out to Vegas, those casinos were not on the rise. West Coast land was cheap. He bought it early, and that's how he got that money enough to buy that team in 81. So, in essence, you've got to take his ability to own human beings away from him. That's what you got to do. Because believe me, nothing else is gonna hurt this man. That's what he's getting off on. And think about it. You heard in the extended version of the recording who feeds them, who gets them their cars, who gets them their houses. I do. He thinks he's their master. That they couldn't eat, they couldn't live, they wouldn't have homes if they didn't play for him. They wouldn't have food to eat and clothing if it wasn't for him. Are you kidding me?
But you
kidding me? That's that daddy syndrome.
Yeah, the white daddy syndrome. Exactly what it is. White daddy syndrome.
Yeah, and he's bought all into it.
Mhm. But it was crazy to think about. This is what I think was an aha moment for a lot of people, was the fact that not even Magic Johnson was allowed to go to a Clippers game. Because I was thinking about, that scene in Do the Right Thing, where my Spike Lee talked to the pizza owner's son about why there's no black on the walls. And he said, he said, who are the black people you like? He said, well, Magic Johnson, but they not niggas though. They different. They successful.
Yeah, he's like Fred.
Yeah,
he's like, that different. Yeah, that didn't even work with him.
That didn't work with them, right? But I think people were more shocked about Magic Johnson not being allowed versus his disdain for black people in general. Not even Magic Johnson, he's not like one of them. Go ahead.
I didn't even think anybody should be shocked by that.
Why you say that?
I didn't think it was a shocker. I mean, we live in I live in the real world with real Negroes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, most of us have a side eye when it comes, when we get hired and we got all these white folks working with us. Sometimes we walk in with that psychological defect, and rightfully so. I always tell people, like, I remember when the Katrina hit, right? And I remember, days started going by and no help. Man, they ain't gonna do it like that. I remember some friends said they wouldn't do it like that. They gonna be there. I said, no. What makes you think that a group of people that allowed you to be enslaved since 1619 over here, killed, raped, pillaged, then when you get that pseudo freedom, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. Then you still are in Jim Crow segregation for 50 years. Then you in post-Jim Crow era. Now, what makes you think that they would go protect us or would go save us? I'm never shocked by anything that happens here. Now, I can be disappointed. I can be pissed off. It can almost be, man, I can't believe, in hyperbole, I might say, I can't believe they let that happen. But deep down, I'm never shocked. Blaming all eyes on the prize. Maybe they should have never showed us that when we were kids. I blame it on that. Like, come on, they've told us the history, right? Through documentaries, we watch what they've allowed to happen to people that look like us, strictly on the basis of that we have darker skin, not because someone did something to deserve this treatment. So I don't know why they were shocked. Of course, you knew Magic. I always say there's a meeting before the meeting and there's a meeting after the meeting, and we ain't in the before or after meetings.
Wow.
Yeah, especially with Magic's group, the what's that? The
Guggenheim group. Yeah, Guggenheim or
those are serious Zionists, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make a move. But like you said, they can't force a man to give up his business. But with the character assassination that they got on the man, he might go on and maybe, I don't know. Who knows what the move is? But because they've been using Magic ever since he came out with the lie about him having HIV.
That he had AIDS. Yeah, man, right. Man, the healthiest looking AIDS patient I've ever seen in my life.
But you think his son was a blood sacrifice, though? You think his son was a sacrifice for him?
I think that son was just misguided because Magic ain't never at home, just like Michael Jordan and his kids. When Michael Jordan's daughter came out gay. I think a lot of this stuff ain't no conspiracy. This is as simple as a man not raising his children. He wasn't there. Michael wasn't there, and so you don't know what's going on. I bet Magic was almost damn near as shocked as we were. Hell, in essence, the boy acts just like Cookie. If you've heard him in his interviews and stuff, that's all to it.
Well, you know what Sugar Ray Leonard. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. G.
No, I was gonna say what the doc was saying. I don't know why I won't keep on to call it Guggenheim. Whatever. I know it starts with a G, but I don't know whatever the group, the ownership group Magic is in.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be, I grew up on Dallas. My mom, it was me, my dad, and 3 women, 2 sisters and my mama. So, they monopolized television, right? So if I couldn't go down there and watch it with my dad downstairs, I'd have to watch TV upstairs because he didn't allow TVs in your room. And I remember, at that time he's watching the news or this, that, and the other. So if I got getting bored with documentaries and stuff like that, I'd go with my sisters and my mom. And I ended up getting caught up in Dallas. Still watch the revitalized version now. And I really believe that stuff is true. If you look at your Dallases, your dynasties, those big, super-duper powerful white executives, only God knows what clandestine plan they have. Mm-hmm. And I'm with the doc. It's something peculiar that this came out. Did y'all hear, and this is getting swept on the rug, nobody's mentioning this. Did you hear about Mark Jackson's assistant coach recording conversations between Mark Jackson and the other coaches and stuff, and even players.
No, I didn't hear about that.
Something's got to happen. That's what I'm trying. This just came out 2 days ago. When I was researching for my blog article, I found this and I said, wait a minute, this is on ESPN.com. Let me pull this up. And I'm like, really? And this guy got fired by Golden State for recording conversations. They were supposed to be private between the coaches in the coaches' conference room, and also just players sitting, after practice and stuff. He'd be recording. No one knew he was recording. They fired him. Guess where this young white man is now?
What? Where are you?
He has been rehired, and I want to say he's a scout for the Boston Celtics. Something's happening here in the NBA. I'm not sure what they're doing.
Well, they say Mark Jackson, the Clippers looking to get rid of him. They're looking to get rid of him, allegedly, and trying to get Steve Kerr as the coach now. So you might have something there. It might be some smoke and fire there. But, the thing about it is, too, is that people say, that's why people don't really know what's going on, because people say, well, she entrapped him. Okay, that's how the FBI catch people. They entrap people. That's how the law enforcement catch people. They set people up. So, but the thing about it is, okay, but it's illegal to record. No, it's not. For the most part, if one person on a phone call knows that it's being recorded, it's okay, except for with the exception of 12 states in the country. If you recall if you are recording a phone conversation, you don't have to have the consent of the other person on the line, as long as you are aware that you are recording the phone conversation. With the exception of 12 states, that is allowed, for you to record somebody without their quote-unquote permission. But I wouldn't be surprised with Donald Sterling. They might Godfather to his ass, like Hyman Roth. Okay, he might perhaps die in his sleep or something very soon. The team will be sold. You know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with some heavyweights. These guys, they once the thing about it is they clean up their own mess. It's like Bugsy Siegel, a Jewish gangster. He said we kill each other. We take care of our own business. We don't need no outside. We don't need no courts. We're gonna settle it our way, and everybody's gonna be okay with it.
Minister Farrakhan said the same thing.
There you go. So it's out there. But I'm going to get to okay. There you go. I mean, if you're a nation, if you believe in that nation type of mentality, there you go. But I'm going to get to the phone lines and get to St. Louis. People feel free to call in. Area code 646-652-4593. We're going to definitely get a woman's point of view, a beautiful, strong sister that I happen to know as the one and only Mama D.
Hey, Ron, how you doing?
I'm good. It's a blessing to have you on.
Guests on both segments. Oh, just wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm ever grateful to my mom who gave us a copy of Cooking with Mother Nature by Dick Gregory back in the 80s, and it changed our whole eating style completely, and we continue to make modifications. I won't eat anything with corn or that's made from corn or has any kind of derivative of corn. And the same with soy products. The underlying or connective tissue here, if you will, with both guests is the fact that you got to read. You got to read, and if you're hanging out with people who do not read, you need to find some people who do read, because all of this makes sense. It's like the brother was talking about Eyes on the Prize. Yeah, you watch that, you read a history book. God, why are you surprised?
Exactly. Exactly.
Why are you surprised?
And oftentimes, I've had some liberal white colleagues, and when you work in the humanities department at any college, you'll always have, it seems to be, it's quite a, no matter where
liberal and white, isn't that oxymoronic? Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, this allowed to happen. This, like if I were to say what I just previously stated, like, why should you? I'm never surprised. They would say, and I'd be like, well, like when when the Trayvon Martin incident, that's when their real true colors, and that's oxymoronic because white is not an actual color. But when they were when the Trayvon Martin incident happened, I'll never forget this. Now we're at a black school in HBCU, and I remember their colors started to show. They were angry. They were visibly angry from a white female PhD to a white male MFA to another white man PhD, and so they're supposed to be so learned and so cultured, particularly if you're humanities, fine arts and humanities. You should have a range of cultures that you at least analyze and understand, even topically. And they were so angry, and they kept making up excuses for why Zimmerman did this, because they adopted him, because he's closer to white like them, right? And he wanted to be white, and so they adopted his ideological beliefs. And I never forget, I said, look how those white boys did Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi in 1955. Well, the times were different. And I thought, and this is what's so crazy, and I had to think to myself, I said, seriously? And I told them, I said, let me ask you a question. When has castrating and beating an unarmed, innocent teen ever been accepted at any time? I don't give a damn what the mores of the time say sociologically, right? That would have never made sense. I don't care if this was 1455. It doesn't make any sense. So don't give me the temporal indices or the extra-textual factors that go into play. Well, that doesn't make sense. So you got to come out of that damn textbook and out of that professorial mode when analyzing this stuff. And what I mean by their true colors, they were really off-putting to me, and I think they got upset with me because I would never cower down or retreat from my beliefs because it was inexcusable. And so I always say, that's why I love history. I should have probably majored in history, is because it does repeat itself.
Absolutely.
It's fluid, yet it's static. Everything that existed before stays the same, though time is fluid and moving. It just morphs into a different format. Like, people don't understand this, and black people are so caught up in how much money they're making. They're so upset. Well, can't nobody just quit their job and go protest when everybody was up in arms in the social media world about that they should boycott, they should not play. No, you would not go to your job. And I said, wait a minute. me making $44,000 a year, yes, it is going to hurt me and my family like a son of a bitch. So yes, I might not, though I would have done it, but I might have some trepidation about doing it because I need my check every 2 weeks. I'm literally living from every 2 weeks. A house, we got 2 cars, I got a little boy, we have tuition, we have things to take care of. But these guys are making astronomical figures. If you have made $15 million in 1 year, who gives a damn if you ever work again? It's not as if they're going to be dead broke and have to be at the unemployment line. So that's when you can really afford to stand up.
Oh, there's a book out called, not out, but it was out. It made its way maybe 2 years ago called The $40 Million Slaves. And that's basically what you're seeing today with this incident, because there are no more Mahmoud Abdul-Raufs, there are no more Muhammad Ali's, and
no more Jim Brown.
Oh, they're there, but they're just not in the spotlight. Not anybody that's in the spotlight. They gonna make sure them folks stay behind the dumb curtain.
Well, the closer we have to LeBron James will be that.
Yeah, and I'm proud of LeBron James, man.
But that's how far you can go, though. I mean, I respect him too. Yeah.
He did what Michael Jordan would never do during his heyday of his career.
I mean, remember Michael Jordan with
anything.
Yeah, because Michael Jordan, even with the Harvey Gantt situation in North Carolina, when he refused to support Harvey Gantt, the first black mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, when he was running for U.S. Senate against Jesse Helms. Yeah, but I mean, they call you boy too. They call you boy too. Jesse Helms. One thing about Jesse Helms, what people don't understand, this is how slick these packers are. Jesse Helms, he comes from a TV background. He understands the power of propaganda and television and media. That's why he was so successful. It's like with Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater was Bush's one brain. He was the one that trained Karl Rove. Lee Atwater was an interesting character because before he died of quote-unquote brain cancer, he actually apologized to Harvey Gantt for destroying his chances to be senator. But he said something, I'm paraphrasing him. He said back in the 50s, you could say nigga, nigga, nigga and get elected. But, you know, when you go into the 80s and 70s because of the civil rights movement, you replace nigga, nigga, nigga with state rights, state rights, state rights. He was the cat that got Reagan. When Reagan won the Republican bid for president, he announced it nationally from the Neshoba County Fair in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1980. 50 years ago, that's where they killed them 3 civil rights workers. So the subliminal the messaging, the understanding of media, and not only that, Lee Atwater was responsible for the Willie Horton ad that derailed Michael Dukakis. And also Lee Atwater owned a very popular barbecue rib place in Virginia. He did a blues album. He played blues guitar with B.B. King, did an album with him. So he understood people's psychology. Because black folks, a lot of us just want to be accepted by white supremacy. We don't want to be equal. We just want to be liked by massa. And then when people talk about the Clippers not boycotting, hell, all these white business corporations, insurance companies, and bank corporations that you work for benefited from the generational death of your ancestors. Okay? You empowering them, and they stealing from you today. They stealing your wealth from you today.
That's the only reason CarMax and State Farm pulled out their sponsorship of the Clippers, because if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
It's not ethical
for them to pull out to make more money, because how many niggas are sitting here on got State Farm insurance? How many niggas buy their cars from CarMax? That only makes sense. Of course, no, they're not in support of you. They're in support of you spending your money with them.
That's right.
I know, because I bought my last 2 cars I bought from CarMax. So, they know, okay, for the most part, middle class is going to be buying cars at a cheaper price, and they can come to us because we're a car superstore, and we might knock off a few $1,000s as opposed to if you're spending $25,000, you might get it for $21 here. So they're just trying to keep their patronage. That's all they're trying to do.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
We got another caller. I won't get this caller in. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Just wanted to let you know, great show, sir. I've enjoyed your comments. So one thing about We All Be, it lets you know you're not the only person that sees what's going on. So y'all have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll be talking with you, Ron, son. Call me later.
I will call you later, Mama D. We love you madly. Thank you so much.
Okay. Love you madly, too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We got another caller to replace Sister Bummer D, but she can't be replaced. You know, she's a beyond category. Caller, y'all on the air. Welcome to We All Be. Let's see.
Hello, this is Renee.
Hey, Renee, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're good. I'm good.
Very well.
My thoughts on the issue. First of all, I like how you guys have it set up, like your show and everything. I was looking at that. But my thoughts on it is, number one, I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but why so many black people were surprised? I mean, that's ridiculous.
About the Obama fact.
Yeah, exactly. You know, a lot of black people unfortunately think a lot of black people unfortunately think we are in this post-racial society, and they've bought into the fact about Obama being the president, and you know, they watch these TV shows that make it seem like, you know, white people are aligned with black people, and that some black people can get, you know, to high positions and things like that. But they don't understand in the real world that's not how it happens. People are now basing the real world off of these reality shows. Exactly. So they think that black people are really doing it big and we're making it. And we're not. No. And, you know, as far as the Clippers, I mean, I knew pretty much that this was not going to, they were not going to rebel against it or speak out. Deep down inside, I hoped that they would, but they didn't. And the fact is that, you know, black people now, we will sell out so easily. We are very easily bought and sold. And we don't even go to the highest bidder. We go to any bidder. And, I mean, if you don't have your integrity, then what do you have? And I got in an argument with other black people about this issue, and their stance was that, like one of the hosts said, about the money. and nobody's going to take care of their family and all this kind of stuff, and nobody's going to pay for them and breaking the contract. But the thing about it is, like you guys said, these people make big money. They have endorsements. They could have pulled together, had solidarity on this issue. Mm-hmm. And trust me, they would have acted immediately to try to work something out. You know, and it disgusts me because if this were the gay community, okay, if this were the Jewish community, that man would have had to come out and speak within 24 to 48 hours within that time, because they would have came out, they would have protested, the gay organizations and Jewish organizations would have immediately came out and called for his head, called for him to be suspended, to lose the team, everything that they could do. But as black people, we put our fate, or our destiny, rather, in other people's hands. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just don't understand. I don't understand when we will wake up.
I remember you know, with Isaiah Thomas and Larry Bird.
Yeah.
When Dennis Rodman made the comment about if Bird was black, he'd just be an average player. Mm-hmm. And then Isaiah came behind it and said, you know, that's true. Boy, they got Isaiah, put him on the block. He was out on the TV the next day apologizing without hesitation.
And they had Bird there so he could apologize in front of the white boy.
Yeah, man, that's when I lost all my respect, man. I never forgot that, man.
Right.
Well, Isaiah and Zeke is still being punished, I think. For
yes,
that.
He is.
Because there's no way in the world. I mean, in my lifetime, I grew up on Isaiah in his heyday, and I've never seen any point guard touch him. I mean, people get upset when I say this. I think the closest thing I've ever seen to a little man that could score like that, even big or little, is Allen Iverson. But I felt like Zeke was better than Magic Johnson, way better. I think he had better handles. He was a better shooter. I thought he was a smarter player. He just didn't happen to play with 4 other first ballot Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? And I think it's traveled with him everywhere he's gone, from Indiana Pacers when wasn't he working for Bird at one point, wasn't he? Or was it still Donnie Walsh? Yeah, Donnie Walsh was on. I don't think Bird was there yet. But then when he goes to New York with those bogus, sexual harassment allegations, I think Zeke has never been put out front like he should have, and I think he's carried that burden. The establishment never forgets. They never forget.
No.
And I think people were so, and like I say, I'm not going to call people that don't stand up for themselves or for our people cowards, but I'll just say you're not brave. So you can never talk to me about what you will do, because you don't stand for anything. Because, once again, the key to making the reason why you want to make a lot of money, so if somebody says, fuck it, it's all gone, your fame and your job is gone, you got enough money. That's why, in essence, you're hitting the lottery when you play professional sports. When you're making that type of money per year, it shouldn't matter if someone says, you'll never play basketball again. So I made $20 million last year. And, that's what it ought to be, that type of at least integrity associated with your character, because when you're going out there and playing. Say what?
I had compared it to the slave mentality, and I said that, and some black people were so upset. And in my opinion, it's the same setup. This man is Sterling is the slave master. Okay, the slave master had no problem with sleeping with black women. Okay, he would push his own wives to the side, and he would sleep with as many black women as he could. Okay, so this man is with, for all intents and purposes, this is a black woman. Okay, that he's with. He can do that, and then the slave master can have black people working for him, making him money, but do not think that they will have even the slightest ounce of respect for you outside of that. They have no respect. You're there to make them money, and the woman is there to please him sexually. And this is the same thing in this situation.
Mm-hmm. And his wife, Shelley Sterling, she's just as complicit in this as everyone else.
Definitely.
Because you're not married to a man for 50 years and don't know his ideological beliefs. Don't even tell me that.
Right.
And if you're in a relationship with somebody, married or not, for 50 years, and you all have never had conversations like that, then that's not even a relationship.
Exactly. And I would say, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. So I was
just totally agreeing.
Yeah, well, also I would say when y'all talk about this, I think about George Carlin, the famous stand-up comedian. He said that this is an ownership society.
Yeah, funny guy.
And with Flip Wilson, people should look. Black folks should look at Flip Wilson not because he was Geraldine, but because of how smart he was. He struggled for 11 years, and then he had that TV show for 5 years. But he told them people, "I want to own my show. I own my show." And so he was retired by 35. He retired before he was 40 and never had to worry about money. Okay, because he owned his stuff.
Work again, and his estate.
And had to work again. Yeah, I mean, because people understand it's different if you want to work versus when you have to work. Okay, I would rather want to work rather than have to work. Anything.
I want to say something. I want to respond to the caller. What you just said, young lady. You said that it's the slave mentality. I'm going to say I disagree with you because that's disrespectful to the slaves. Because the slaves didn't have options. They didn't have options. And see, one thing I hate when slaves, no, these niggas had options. The slave didn't have a mansion to go to. He didn't have a bank account full of money. Everything at their disposal where they could have walked off the plantation. They couldn't have done it if they wanted to. And it's only a very few of minute.
This is what I'm saying with that, though. I'm not, I hear you very clearly, but what I'm saying is that, people think that slavery and all that, especially white people, that that's so long ago and it doesn't apply. My feeling is nothing ever really changes. It just changes form. So at that time, like you said, they did not have options, absolutely. But right now, we still are dealing with slavery. Look at all the black men in the criminal justice
for nonviolent offenses,
system. Exactly. And then with these basketball players, okay, people are looking like, oh, they're making so much money. But the chains are the contracts, okay? They're under contract. And if you look at it, this man is a billionaire, okay? What they're getting is peanuts to him.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. So while they do have options, and I wish they would have exercised them more, it's still just a modern-day form, a different form of slavery.
Well, in the slavery, really, they don't have chains. People breach contracts. Doc can tell you that. NBA will tell you that. People breach contracts every damn day, all day.
Right.
That ain't nothing.
Right.
That ain't nothing. And believe me, any court, unless you're in a kangaroo court of law, any civil court should, with some brains, and of course, I know I wouldn't be surprised if they had still made them pay fines and have to pay the majority, the remainder of their contract off. But a pure court of justice wouldn't have made them pay a dime because, of course, who would work for? That is a suit against your boss, if anything.
Right.
Your boss hates people like me. This is recorded. So any decent court that's upholding the law, rightfully so, and being a righteous court, Sterling couldn't stand in court if it's righteous. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But
think about it. If your boss says that to you on your job, you're gonna own that company damn near, or you're definitely going to be a millionaire. You can't look at this. This is terrible. And even before the recording, look at his practices. This man racially discriminates on the job. This is bullshit.
They already knew that man was racist, and they know way more about it than the public does.
Oh, it's worse than what we know.
Right, and when you talk about black people, like the slavery thing, like you were saying, the thing is, many black people now have fed into the contract being the change. See, because that's what a lot of black people were saying was, well, they're under contract. They use it as an excuse to not do anything, to not stand up, to not try to fight it. And the fact that they turn their shirts inside out, like, who came up with that?
That was the stupidest thing in the world.
It was.
Putting your warm-up on inside out, because guess what? I'd have applauded them if they had put black tape on top of the word Clippers. What good does it do when you turn your warm out inside out where they can't see the word Clippers, and you dump them at the center of the court. But then in the game, you're running down and dunking and shooting balls and blocking shots and playing defense and rebounding with a jersey that says Clippers on it that's owned by Sterling. Come on now.
Exactly.
I want to take everybody.
Black people, we need to wake up We need to wake up.
I was just thinking about it. I'm glad we had this conversation today. I want to wrap it up. I know, this is a powerful conversation, and people going to get this and really be fed by this all that we're saying today. I just want to get people last thoughts on this show and how we can reach you all, starting with Dr. Whitaker.
Okay. As I stated earlier, take your health into your own hands, be your own teacher, and stay out of hospitals. You can reach me at medicines.net, medisins.net, or toll free 888-633-4746.
And Dr. G?
Well, you can find me at G Joyner, GEEJOYNER on Facebook. You can Google me, pick up the books He Talk White, The Scholarly and Artistic Works of a Writer, or my other book, Kim, The Story of John. The first one is a scholarly piece about the negative depiction of African Americans in mass media. The second one is a fictitious, three fictitious accounts, one about a black soldier that goes AWOL during the Vietnam War. Another one's about a little town called Piper's Gap where if the roles were reversed, it's actually based on a piece by George Orwell, Shooting an Elephant. It's based as if blacks were the dominant majority and whites were the subordinate minority. And, of course, the title of the book, Kim, The Story of John, When Good Sex Goes Bad. You can Google me and find those books, or you can go on YouTube and check out some of my lectures on the Black Arts Movement.
Excellent. Sister Renee, you want to say anything?
Yes, I'm so happy to hear the doctors on the show. I am actually working on a documentary about the rise of homosexuality in the black community. The emasculation of black men and, black women being more masculine themselves.
Oh my!
And I want to give you my YouTube, so you can see some of my videos, and I will tell you, I go in. So I'm one of those people either cannot stand me, which is usually the gay community, or
either
people
love or
that
love to
are
hate,
like,
huh?
yeah. Right. Well, my YouTube is Mrs. Legit 816, MRSLEGIT, and the number 816, all one word.
Okay. Well, I want to thank y'all for feeding our people today with this information, because knowledge is power, like Brother Dick Gregory said. He said, good information is good power, bad information is bad power, but we should know how to use it correctly when it comes to the liberation of minds and everything else in between. So I want to thank y'all once again, and we love you all madly. And I look forward to having you all back on the show, family. Thank you so much.
All right. Appreciate that, Brother Brian.
No problem.
Dr.
Thank
G
you.
and Sister Renee. Peace out to both of you.
Peace to the righteous, guys.